welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. That's from a guy who shares his story about his wacko mother. And I do mean wacko. And she's done everything she can to sabotage things in his life, in particular his marriage. Because this guy, as you're going to see, actually has, wait for it, a happy marriage. But you're going to see here, he was smart enough not to marry an American woman. Therefore, he has a happy marriage. And his mother is definitely an example that why a lot of guys in a situation like this cut off family. And I cannot make it any more clear how wacko she is here. So for any of you guys out there that have wacko family members, particularly your mom, that no other woman is good enough for her little boy, and she wants to always be the number one woman in your life, that type of thing, you'll appreciate this. And of course, the meddling mom and drama and stuff like that. And there's a point that it gets so bad, so toxic, which is a warranted word for this story, you got to cut him loose, as hard as that is. So he starts off, he says here, Dear They Did What? I'm used to always getting the Dear SSMs from the other channel, but this is a Dear They Did What? I'm chiming in to dish on my manipulative, backstabbing, two-faced, narcissistic, crazy person of a mother. Spoiler alert, we don't talk. If you ever met her, you haven't really met her. You met the mask that she shows in public. Many people in the town that I used to live in ask about her when I'm passing through, and when I say I wouldn't know, they can't help but ask me why. It mostly stems from my relationship with the woman in my life. And as you will see, what he's describing to her is quite warranted. He says, here's a funny anecdote to start things off. He says, just to show you what we're dealing with, no one told me anything about puberty when I was growing up. So when I did, what came naturally to young boys, my mother shrieked in disgust about it to my dad. Having found a forensic evidence on my bedsheet, Jesus Christ, she shrilly exclaimed, it's like he defecated on it. My dad hooted with laughter and eventually gasping for breath between chuckles, he said, darling, boys will be boys. Well, you obviously all know what he's talking about here. My mom, her fist clenched on her side, screamed, then my son is not going to be a boy. That memory makes me chuckle even to this day. Oh, good Lord. When I got back stateside from the Navy, she set me up on a blind date with a coworker. He says, picture a man with an opera voice singing, mistake. Oh, you just love her, Mom insisted. She's a sweetie. Uh-huh. She had the body of a butterball turkey and a face like a refrigerator door. The attraction wasn't there. I went on the date and told her friend that it was fun and said goodnight. When I told my mom everything at her insistence, she demanded that I take the girl out again. Hey Mom, my dating life is none of your business. I love you, you're crazy, and I love you still, but my dating life isn't your business. Draw a line in the sand, gentlemen, with your personal life and your family sticking their nose in it, otherwise they will continue to cross it. I replied, demand, really? Mom, dating is a precursor to relationships, sex, and marriage. What? Do you think that you're going to demand what I do with my penis? No, the answer is no. She huffed and puffed and squawked for a while, but eventually let it go. It wasn't the first time she tried some manipulative, control-freak crap like this. When I was in high school, I got into a particularly brutal fight with a classmate. The fight nearly over, I was on his chest, pummeling his face, when in a desperate burst of strength, he thrust me backwards, and before I landed on my back, he viciously kicked me in the balls in midair. Ouch. Long story short, my left testicle swelled to the size of a grapefruit. Whilst in the hospital, my mother tried bribing me with a comic book to show my nuts pre-surgery to a coworker who was fascinated by effed up medical stuff. She said I was being ridiculous, but I angrily refused. Wow, great mom, huh? Take a picture so she can show her friends so you can get a comic book out of this. It's amazing all the things in life people have to get permits for, licenses for, but any a-hole can be a parent. Now, I know there's a point when Child Protective Services will get involved, but you all get my point. After I graduated from college, I had a 5-year serious relationship with a woman that went kaput. so I quit pursuing relationships with a woman and focused on myself for a while. That's what you should be doing. Refraining from pursuing them, with an added caveat that I would boink a woman if and only if she pursued me, not the other way around. Eventually, one did. She was a mildly heavy-set waitress at a diner where my boss and I ate lunch sometimes. She asked me out in front of my boss. Looking back at it, I can't help but shaking my head. Why is it that when pursuing relationships, women are so hard to find, but when you can care less about them, they seek you out? It boggles my mind. Well, if you watch my channel enough, you will understand exactly why that is the case. I said okay. We went out, and afterwards, she expressed sexual interest. I agreed, but I laid out my terms. Recreational sex only. Safe sex only one time only, no relationships. It was agreed, and I hit that. Where does my mom fit into this? I'll get to that. This guy definitely has a sense of humor, as you can tell in his writing here. Unfortunately, I hit it too well. The only way a man can get good at anything is to practice, and I put my best moves into play one time. Afterwards, this woman kept giving me knowing looks every time she saw me, and to my disgust. Whether with her friends, her family, at work, whatever. It was the same, I effed you, and it was a really good look. My boss saw that look on her face the next time we ate dinner and asked me about it. When I reluctantly confirmed his suspicions, he threw back his head and laughed his ass off. The guy teased me for weeks about it, my name and her name sitting in a tree, Kissing. Good God, are we back to first grade? Once when getting road snacks at a gas station, I saw this same plump woman in between the aisles. She was wearing a t-shirt, denim jacket, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and a denim mini skirt. She whispered into my ear that she had a condom and the public bathroom, door locked from the inside, and she wasn't wearing any panties. Disgusted, I refused. In a gas station bathroom? Really? He says, now, where does my mother fit in the story? She hurt her back and needed my help carrying 50-pound bags of animal feed at the store. This aforementioned woman passed by me and my mother in the store. She gave me that look, and I said hi, and in a sultry voice, wincing, I nodded a greeting at her and tried ignoring her. My control freak mother wasn't having any of that. She squawked, "Hey, my name. She's talking to you." I shook my head at her whilst giving her the bulging-eyed glare and tried with a hand gesture to get her to shut up and let it go. Nope. She showed her public face to the woman and extended her hand to shake it. She said, "I'm so sorry for his lack of manners. I'm certain that I raised him better than that. Hi, I'm his mother." Sounds like your mom wanted a grandchild, so she's again sticking her nose into your romantic life. "My name is such and such. What's your name?" The woman shook her head and introduced herself. Mother looked back and forth between the both of us and asked, "So where do you two know each other from?" in a voice so loud that the entire store could hear her. She said, I said, The two of us are over and over again until I pointed and said, "You know what? I'm going to walk out that way right now." My mother sucked up to her for a few more seconds, and then followed me and interrogated me over and over, from the aisles and through the checkout line, through the parking lot. After the third interrogation question, whilst lifting bags of feed from the cart into the car, I snapped and snarled through gritted teeth, "Ugh! You want to know who she is so bad? Fine. She's a skank that I effed with when I was horny, all right. Yeah, I hit that once. She came on to me. I double bagged 2 condoms, my junk, and I stuffed her like a Thanksgiving turkey. That's right. I plowed her lady garden. I filled her out like a job application, and I never looked back. Unfortunately, she's like a turd that won't flush. With a big, fat, smug smile on her face, she kept on coming back over and over again. Now, does that answer all your questions once and for all? Will you please leave me the F alone about it?" She crossed her arms and griped the whole way home, but eventually let it go. Good Lord. I mean, I can't imagine talking to your mom like this, but I can see why you talk to your mom like this. But again, clearly, your mom's effed up, and a lot of major family issues here, which a lot of people get sucked into, as many of you are aware. And you need to draw some serious boundaries with your mom. And probably this guy and other people are thinking, yeah, easier said than done. Well, fair enough, but you have to enforce them. And if they don't respect them, you walk away. We're not going to have a relationship unless you respect. And one of the most things you need to respect is my personal life, my romantic life. Again, her sticking her nose in his business. And we're just getting started here with this wacko. He says, I can guess what you're all thinking. How could a person diss his own mother like this? He says, this is the same woman who handed me her car keys and made me drive myself to the hospital when I came down with an appendicitis because she was so emotionally exhausted by a visit from my cheerfully passive-aggressive grandmother and aunt, her mom and sister. The ER doctor said that at another hour or so, and it would have burst and possibly killed me. Well, that's when Child Protective Services and will be warranted to pay a visit. Good Lord. And the fact you're still talking to her, I don't get that. And where's your dad in all this? Anyway, a few straws away from our estrangement was my relationship with my now wife. My wife is a devout Roman Catholic woman from the Philippines. Why the Philippines? Because whilst serving in the Navy, I'd been there 5 times. The Filipinas there were always very, very, very nice to me. I'll put it that way. Furthermore, I just about had my fill of American women. Marriage means absolutely nothing to American women. That ring on her finger isn't a symbol of endless love. It is a lottery ticket waiting to be cashed in when they get bored. Marriage actually means something to Filipino women. Yeah, a lot of guys talk about how they go overseas to find a wife because they haven't been infected by the disease called feminism, at least not so much yet. I know it's starting to impact Japan, but also, let's be honest, the Filipino women liked you so much and other servicemen because they want to have a ticket out of there. But I'm glad, as I'm well aware in your story, you have a very good, traditional, loyal, loving wife. And you're not going to let anything F that up. When we were dating, I described my mother to my fiance in great detail. She couldn't possibly fathom that someone could be this awful to be around. It only took 2 months of time spent with my mother for her to cut my mom off for her life entirely. I suggested that she should forgive and forget. She said that she forgave my mother immediately, but she would never ever again put herself in a social situation where she ever had to speak with her. Well, good for your wife. That's a tough situation that she's in with a crazy mother-in-law. Your wife is doing what you should have done a long time ago, which I now know you did. But I get it's a tough situation with family. The long and the end short of it is that my mother wanted a fiance that she could control, like me. I'm embarrassed to say that I let her emotionally and psychologically abuse and manipulate me for decades. For the longest time, her crazy was my normal. I figured all women were just like her. How wrong I was. Well, you're not that far off. A lot are like her in varying degrees. It's actually interesting that you didn't attract a woman just like her. But a lot of guys, when they have like a Wacko Mom, either they attract one just like her, and that becomes their wife or whatever, or the polar opposite. So in your case, the polar opposite, thank the Lord. How wrong I was. My wife is the sweetest, most kind and loving, understanding, forgiving person I've ever met in my life. Well, that's good to hear, but keep your eyes wide open, brother. You know the stories here. That's not to say that she's a pushover, because she's not. She laid down the law from the get-go. 3 main rules. Don't cheat, don't hit, and be nice. Well, I got no problem with the first 2 rules, but the third one, be nice, that could be interpreted in a certain way. Don't be a kiss-ass. Don't make her the center of your world. Don't put her on the pedestal. You do that shit, and she's going to turn into your mother. If she's great to you, great. Be great to her back. But again, you come first. She said we'd figure out the rest as we go. I didn't know it was even possible to love someone this much because I didn't believe a woman like this existed. Don't give too much of your heart away, my man. I know it's your wife. I know she's great, but not too much because that's what happens to guys. You come first. I waited for 2 years for the metaphorical snakes to peek out from behind her hair. In short, I expected her to act just like my mother. They are both women after all. But it never happened. I met someone who was too good for me, so I did what any smart man would do. I married her. Oh, and spare me the smack. They did what? I married a pure woman. In this decadent, morally compromised world, do you know the odds of man marrying a pure woman? Not good. Yeah, very rare. He says, I'm betting you're wondering where all the they did what moments. Well, my mother wasn't happy about this. She kept trying to sow seeds of doubt in my mind. She kept asking me if I knew for sure she wasn't married before, how I knew she didn't have any kids, how I knew she was even a virgin. Yes, she actually asked me that. She was, by the way. She told me that as soon as my wife got her green card, she'd leave me, high and dry. Wrong, we're still married. She said as soon as she was a citizen, she'd leave me high and dry. Again, wrong, we're still married. She said as soon as she settled into American life, she'd divorce me. Again, wrong, we're still married. I'm impressed. I'll be honest with you, as wacko as your mom is and was to you, I'd be saying some of the same things that she was saying, to be honest, and I'm glad that didn't happen, that you weren't used for a green card or whatever. It says, every time I had a day off, my mom insisted I drop everything to go help her with whatever, and I did. Smack. That's the problem. Your mom demands everything of you, and she said jump, and you said how high. You were always there no matter how crazy she was and how she treated you. Can't act that way. But it got to the point that we had to have a sit down. At the sit down, I reached out, clasped her hands, and said, Mother, I want you to know that there is a number one lady in my life, and it is not you. She squawked. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged. It means your son got married. Time for me to stop being a full-time mama's boy and start being a full-time husband. She didn't take that very well. She said that my wife wasn't her family, that I was her family, and that my wife wasn't an outsider trying to steal me from her. I said that I wasn't her property, and she screamed at me, telling me to get out. Good Lord. My mom has her issues, but man, I'm feeling pretty darn lucky right about now. The straw that broke the camel's back was when my brother and nephew were coming down to visit. Brother, why isn't she sticking her nose in your brother's business like she's sticking her nose in your business? Probably because I'm guessing the brother's older. You're her baby or something like that. And he probably maybe put her in her place a few times. I told my brother I had to go to work for a few hours after he and my nephew arrived. So the missus and I set it up where we'd take them out to lunch without my mother. Uh-oh, this ain't going to go well. Before they went to my mother's house, knowing how the missus and I and our mother didn't get along, my little brother readily agreed. He's the younger brother. Unfortunately, our mother, being the micromanager that she was, she called my brother the evening before his visit to spew her pre-scheduled activities. Mid-conversation, he let it slip out that he, my nephew, and the missus and I would be having lunch together before he went over to her house. Thanks, Big Mouth. He says, whoo, this sent her into a mental tailspin. She was convinced that my missus and I were going to sabotage her relationship with my nephew, her grandson. Well, maybe that was a good thing if you were going to do that, even though you weren't. In fact, she angrily called me and my wife at 3 o'clock in the morning and threatened to sue my wife. What is she going to sue your wife for? And she called you at 3 o'clock in the morning? He says, you can't make this stuff up. Sue my wife? Are you crazy? Sue her for what? She replied in a shriek, I'll think of something. She's trying to steal my grandson. Is your mom off her fucking meds? My missus asked sleepily, what is going on? And I replied, oh, nothing, just mom, just telling me she's going to sue you. My wife looked incredibly shocked. For what? I shrugged, stealing her grandson. I told you she was crazy. I intentionally let my mom hear that part. As I brought the phone up to my ear, I could hear her shrieking even before her words became intelligible. I told her to shut up repeatedly until she took a breath. Then I told her to see a shrink and get back to me. Again, you still have her in her life with all this never-ending bullshit. The last time we spoke, she apologized for her behavior and said that she found out that my wife and I were moving out of town. I confirmed this. She asked me, Sonny, you've been avoiding me. Do you want to have a social relationship with me or not? I replied, to be honest, no. In the interest of my own well-being and mental health, I find it necessary to cut toxic people out of my life. You, mother, are extremely toxic. She screamed, toxic? Me? Is that so? Well, fine. If that's the way you want it, so be it. Have a nice life. I hung up on her. She called me back screaming, but I hung up again. Eventually, she got the point. Mom, here's an example of the toxic. My wife and I have been married for the past 8 years. I can honestly say that they have been the best years of my entire life. I can imagine so. It was extremely painful to cut my mother off. Are you sure about that? But just the idea of speaking to her gives me anxiety, so I don't. I drop Mother's Day cards off and Christmas presents in her mailbox. Why? You cut her out of your life. That's just going to give her hope that one day they'll be back. That doesn't show her what she did pushed you too far, because you're still going to drop off cards and things like that. She has no idea where me, my wife, and our munchkin live, and we prefer it that way. I'm sure she knows where you live. I send this to you with no exception of you posting it, but maybe, just maybe, you have the other fellow They Do What fans who have a toxic parent and want them to know that they are not alone. I also want them to know that their life and mental health matters. So if they need to cut someone who is toxic out of their lives, sometimes that's what it takes. Love your work, man. I'm a big fan. Thanks for reading my message. Well, brother, again, I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad you got yourself a wife that definitely is a unique one in today's world, and hope that goes well. But I can't fathom how you put up with that bullshit that long. But I do understand family dynamics is very difficult. It's not as easy to just cut somebody off, but there's a point, as you are well aware, that becomes too much. And where you're going to let her ruin the good marriage that you have. Because, number one, you married a not an American woman. Good job on that one. And you got a good thing going. So, and I guarantee eventually it could have been enough for her and she would have gone back to the Philippines, or at least, well, she'd become American. She ain't going back to the Philippines, but she would have been done with you and moved on because she couldn't take it anymore. But I'm glad she's out of your life. But I still don't get why you're dropping off cards for Mother's Day or Christmas, because you're not having her in your life. And the last thing you want is her in your life messing with your child. Because I know you said you have a kid, and congratulations on your child. So guys, there you go. There's a point you got to cut them off. And unfortunately, we don't choose the families we were born into, but we can certainly choose to remove these people from our lives if it gets too bad. I wish this guy the best. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.